All right, good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Christine Boland at Remax Ace here at Kennedy and Ellesmere. Come and join us for some good training on Tuesday mornings. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to talk about condo resales and reading status certificates. So what's the most important thing that I should say at the beginning of this training? We're not giving expert advice on status certificates. They should always be reviewed by your client's lawyer, by your buyer's lawyer. But you do get stuck in situations where your client is relying on you because they want to, maybe in a bid situation, have to go firm on the offer, or maybe they just want your opinion, right? So you have to be familiar with the status certificate at the end of the day and how to read it, and so sort of know the components about it a little bit. So I'm going to touch on that today. Not really deep dive into it, but at least give you a little skim of how to go over the status certificate and make sure that the condo you're buying is a good condo for your client and what pitfalls they can sort of fall into. So I'll get started here. I think the best thing is we just start from the basics. So when we're going over condos, we should talk about the different types of condos, I think, first. I think it's important that we understand the different types of condos, because I see very often when people are in the system now, the ones we see most often are standard condominium and co-op condominiums. Sometimes we see common elements as well. And there's a difference between them. They're not all the same, right? And the biggest thing is funding from the bank. So we have your standard condominium corporation. This type of condo is the most common. We deal with this 99% of the time. It's defined as being a separate unit or row house. When you purchase a standard condo, you own the unit, and in some cases, the parking spot or the locker, as we know. If your condo building has other amenities like a pool or a gym, you have access to those spaces, but you don't own them. In most cases, you'd be subject to a fluctuating maintenance fee that is used to pay for and maintain common areas and landscaping. Okay, so I think we should go over, first of all, you have your condominium unit, so you're going to have a title to your unit. How do you know that your parking spot or your locker are owned? Does anybody know whether to define the condo that you're purchasing, whether the locker or the parking spot is owned, or whether it's just exclusive use? Do we know what the difference is when we see it online? So if you look at a condo listing, let's just stop the share and go on for a minute, because I'm going to show you in the system. I'm pretty sure I logged in already here somewhere. Maybe I didn't, but I'd logged in there. Okay, wait, let me just grab a login. So when you go into a condo and you see that there is a locker and a parking spot, and one is an exclusive use and one is owned, what's the difference? Let's see if we can find us an example here online. We'll just log in quick here. So we're going to go to Realm here, and we're just going to grab something in Toronto, right? Let's pick, I don't know, EO9, because lots of condos around there. Okay. Let me come back in here and share with you guys so you guys can see what I'm doing. I don't think I shared from here. All right, so now we're in Realm. So we're looking at the condos here in Realm. And let's just go to something in EO9. Thought I grabbed the EO9 already. Okay, so we have these condos around the town center. So let's grab something in, for instance, Lee Center. Okay, this one in Lee Center, okay, it has parking and a locker. So we're going to go down and we're just going to see where in the description it talks about the parking and the locker. Okay, so you can see one underground. Okay, and here it says parking type is owned. Okay, and then we're going to go look and see the locker, and we see locker is owned, and it gives you the number 33 and P2. Okay, so if you wanted to verify this information, where would you verify this information? Okay, I have a rule that whether you're purchasing a property or selling a property, you should always be pulling your geo warehouse to make sure that you have the correct information. Because when you're relying on the listing, you're relying on that listing agent's information, and there's always room for human error. So you have this 38 Lee Center, number 811, and you have unit 10, level 7, which we'll talk about in a second when we're doing the offer. Okay. And we're going to see here what it has. So we're going to tell us it's Toronto Standard Suite 811. Okay. One full bathroom, right? One bedroom. Okay. And then you see here, it says locker NA, parking space 1. So I'm going to be a little confused by this listing agent right here. So if I was preparing an offer for this, I'm already going to question whether that locker is owned or whether it's exclusive use, because this one is actually a really good example we pulled up. So this tells me one parking space. So one parking space I know is included. I know that I can, and what's important about it being owned, it's that the unit and the parking spot and the locker can all have different deeds. You know, when you guys go online and you see a parking spot or a locker for sale, if you only have exclusive use to that parking spot, you can't do that. You have to have deeded, like you have to own the deed and title for that license, that parking spot or that locker. Okay, so that's very, very important when you're going in to see whether or not the parking or the locker is actually owned or exclusive, and check your geo warehouse. Okay. So I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to go back to the different types of condos that we're talking about. That was our regular typical condo that we go and we see on a regular basis. Too many things open here. Where'd my other one go? So we're going to go back to the types of condos. Let me just stop the share and come back in, make sure you guys are following. Now we're going to go on to a co-op or co-ownership condo. So you own the shares in a private company that owns the building. And by owning those shares, you're given exclusive rights to occupy a specific unit in that building. Potential owners are interviewed by the board. Okay, so why is it important to know this? You won't find funding easily for these kind of condos, because what happens is the bank is seeing that you don't have title to a specific unit in that building. So you got to be very careful. And we're going to go back and try and find one online on Stratus MLS. When you look and you see condo, or you see co-op condo, you got to be sure that your client is probably a cash buyer for that type of condo unit. Okay, and they do exist in the system. So I see very carefully, I've had some new agents come to me, they've been preparing an offer for a co-op condo, and they sell very cheaply. If you see, they're quite the lower end of the condo prices, right? And the reason is for this is because they're not funded easily. Like banks won't fund them because of the way that the ownership is structured in that building. Okay, so just be very careful, because I've seen people prepare offers for this, newer agents, and I say, well, does your client have enough to pay for this in cash, or have they arranged something? And they say no. And I said, well, they're probably not going to get funding for this, right? Oh, they don't realize, they just see something cheap online that they want to buy for their client. They haven't understood the difference in that. Okay, then we're going to go on to Common Elements Condominium Corporation. So this type of corporation doesn't have any units, but has shared spaces or amenities. The owners of the land are responsible for the maintenance of these shared common elements, and most often require community members to pay maintenance on them. So you see these happening a lot in our northern communities, more of our cottage kind of countries. I know Lindsay, for instance, had a new development that went up there they have a shared golf course, for instance. So you own your house and your property, and you can renovate it. You don't need to go to the board for any of that, but you're paying maintenance into some of the common elements of that. For instance, like the tennis courts and the golf courses and stuff like that you're built on. So again, something to be mindful of. I see a lot of these going up, and you are selling a freehold to your client, and they don't realize that there's a condo fee attached to that, because it may have been built on the new golf course, or maybe they have I don't know, a marina or something along those lines that they're all sharing a maintenance fee for. And then timeshare, we don't see that very often online at all. Obviously, you're just buying into a portion of time. So a timeshare is a way for a number of people to share ownership of a property, usually a vacation property, such as a condominium unit within a resort area. We see these a lot in places like Florida. You know what I mean? If people are buying into a timeshare. And then vacant land condominiums, we almost never see these. It's almost bigger for builders. Vacant land condos are defined as bare land that is sold and used to construct condominiums. Corporations register and sell their land as a condominium before any building begins. So again, very rarely see that, but I just wanted to show the different types of condos because I really want you guys to stress and look when you're looking between regular condos and co-op condos, because those are the two most common we see online when we on MLS. So go in and check and see if you can find any, just for the fun of it. When you're looking online today, see if you can see any of those. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay, I'll move along. Once I can get all these bars out of my way. Okay, so we're going to talk about reviewing a status certificate for a little bit. So, let's see here. When you're, I guess you could look at different types of condos, things to remember when buying a condo. I think this one's important to review too before we go to status certificate. So what are the pros and cons? If your client asks you what are the pros and cons about buying a new condo versus getting a resale condo. So one of the biggest things is that, with buying a new condo, you can customize it, right? You can customize certain things, the finishes, how much you want to spend on the flooring, whether you want basic laminate or you want to upgrade to the hardwood, different things like that. And then there's a fee schedule, which is really attractive to a lot of our clients. So the fee schedule lets them not put a big lump sum down at one time. That makes it more affordable for people because they have the time to put the down payment on it. And then also the new condo, they're talking about increase in maintenance fees. So you kind of don't know what the maintenance fee is going to be. They usually say, oh, it might be approximately 62 cents per square foot, but you're not 100% sure of that when it closes. So, kind of a bad thing. It's an up in the air. You're not 100% sure. But with a resale condo, you get what you get. You go, you look at the condo with your client, you get what you get. But they're going to have to come up with that down payment in a lump sum, right? But the maintenance fees are known. And that's a good thing too, because again, we're going to talk about the status certificate a little bit about knowing what those maintenance fees are and sort of where they're going to go. Okay. So what are the biggest complaints? Okay. You want to ask what the biggest complaints are in the unit, what's happening in the unit. Don't be afraid to call the property manager when you're buying a condo in the building for your clients, because you can ask them a lot of questions and they can give you a lot of insight into the building, especially if it's a building you're not familiar with. So it's a good thing to call them. You can get a hold of the meeting minutes and find out what are the biggest complaints in the building, right? It's public information. So you can find out, is everybody complaining because they hate the property manager, the current property manager. I don't know if you guys follow that building at Fairfax at all. It had such good potential. I had a friend who actually owned a unit in that building. Your property manager is your biggest dream or your worst nightmare when it comes to owning a condo. So they had an awful property manager in there for a while. It wasn't taking care of very many maintenance issues. And the maintenance fees just went up, 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 up. Like for a new building, they were going up too quick, right? So really terrible problem they had until a number of years ago now. I think about 6 years ago, they finally got a really good property manager in there. That's why, the builder, what's it, Dell? They always use their Dell property management. They insist on it. That's why they're good buildings to buy in, because they always insist that they use their own property manager, and all of those buildings are always managed well. And generally you see that if it's Dell property management, the maintenance fees are staying low, right? Because they keep a really good standard for their property manager. Property manager will make or break your building and your resale value on your condo, right? What is the management team like? So go talk to the management. Are they miserable to deal with? Are they great? You know what I mean? They seem like they fix everything. It makes a big difference, because when you have complaints, you got to go to those people. Those are your go-to people. Is there storage space available? So if it comes to a locker, take the time to go take your clients around, see the amenities, go see the locker, go see where the parking spot is, check these things out with your client. What does the insurance cover? So does the policy cover any of your content if the building catches fire or if there's water damage, right? Do you fully understand the monthly association fee? So condo fees are based on how many units there are, what the cost is to maintain the building, short and long term, and how the building is managed and funds set aside to litigate and have large repairs completed, right? So you have 100 units in the building, right? They're going to divide whatever it is at the end of the year. They're going to say, okay, this is what we project. We need to fix the roof. and we're going to we spent all this on snow removal and landscaping, and this is what it takes to maintain the pool, and this is security guys salary for the year, and we're going to equally divide that amongst the 100 units in this building, right? That's the way they work. So that's why you find, like, if your client is really focused on, I want to have low maintenance fees, low maintenance fees, low maintenance fees, you have to find out what's super important to them at the end of the day. Like, do you need a pool, or do you care if there's 24-hour security? No? Great. We're going to look at buildings with no bells and whistles, because less to maintain, right? But that's not always the case too. You always want to look, like I said, at the property manager, how well it's maintained, and those things to see if you're going to keep those maintenance fees low. Okay. Sometimes those things are really important to your clients. Like, we're working with a single lady right now who definitely wants security in the building. She doesn't want to go in a building with no security, right? So we just, we just explained to her, okay, that's going to bump your maintenance fees up a little bit, but it's worth it to her at the end of the day. What are the rules? Are barbecues allowed? Are you allowed pets? Are you able to rent out your unit? As a new agent, I bumped into this often. I'd be showing somebody, condos, and then they tell me, oh, well, me and my dog would be moving in, and it's a building that doesn't allow dogs or doesn't allow big dogs. There's different rules for each condo unit. So I know the ones at McCowan and is it McCowan and Shepherd, just west of there, they don't allow big dogs. And she was actively looking in that building, I remember, and they didn't allow anything over 20 pounds. So definitely something important. Talk to your buyers, know what they're coming with and what they need for that building. Is there any litigation? So check and see if there's any past or ongoing litigation. Unit owners can sue other unit owners as well as the public suing the building. So this is really important to look at. So it's also telling you whether the property has a big problem happening. So maybe there's an awful not tenant, owner in the building who has a hoarder problem, right? And they're bringing a lot of insects into the building or mice into the building, and they're going on, and other unit owners are suing them because whatever happens in other units actively affects your unit, because when you live in a building, you're dealing with whatever your neighbor's problems are. So if you have bad neighbors and they have, I don't know, what are they called again? Cockroaches or mice or something, because they're taking poor care of their property, or they say they're constantly smoking marijuana in their unit or something along those lines, you might find there's litigation between other unit owners or something that's happening in the building. So it's important to look that up. You can also find out if they've ever been sued by the public. So why would the public sue a condo building? Anybody? No? Again, maybe it's being poorly managed and they haven't fixed the parking lot. So everybody who comes in through that entrance gets a flat tire in the pothole, or they haven't fixed the trip hazard on the pavement walking to the front door, and numerous people have fallen and twisted their ankle. We were at a building one time. Oh, remind me what they're called here. They're just at Midland and Lawrence, right behind the gas station. The name of that street. Sorry? Prudential. We were showing the Prudential buildings, and they have steps coming out of the Prudential buildings. And this delivery guy took such a wicked fall, tumbled down, and had a big goose egg and was bleeding, right? And we were saying we'd already walked many times on those stairs, and they're hard to see once it gets dark at night. They should really paint the edges of them, right? And this poor guy had such a huge fall. Big time potential for that Prudential building to be sued. Sorry, Prudential, if you're listening to this, but it's true, you should paint your stairs. So you got to watch if there's any litigation happening with that. Is this my porch? So who's responsible for repairs on the balcony? Are you allowed to plant flowers or put patio furniture out? Right, different rules of every building. So each condo corporation sets their own rules for every building. So, when you drive up and you see an older building, that these things sort of came into play for different reasons. Everybody likes a nice aesthetic, right, for the building. So you find a lot of newer buildings have rules like you're only allowed white curtains. Now you might say, I don't want white curtains. Well, they make sure that the outside is white. Your interior can be whatever you want, but all of them have to be white. So the whole building outside looks the same. They might not allow any patio furniture because they don't like the balconies looking messy. You might not be allowed to put up your Christmas decorations. You definitely might not be allowed that barbecue, depending on their insurance or whether they want, smoke affecting the side of the building and discoloring it, right? Otherwise, have to clean it more often. That's why a lot of condo buildings now have started putting balconies on a upper patio level or a rooftop patio level of the building. Fewer amenities does not always mean lower condo fees, so I touched on this. Larger buildings with gyms and pools can spread the cost of higher over a higher population. Smaller boutique condos with next to no amenities have fewer condos to split the common expenses. So like we say, it could be 100 units you're splitting the expenses by, or only 50 or 60 because it's only a 3-story building with a few units on each floor, right? There are those buildings over by town center, I always refer to them, and they on borough or corporate, those ones with that, they literally have a bowling alley, squash court, gym, a pool, everything, movie theater. They have crazy amenities in those buildings, but there's a million gazillion units sharing them because it's those 2 towers sharing those amenities. So you find the maintenance fees actually aren't that bad in those buildings, considering they have a ton of amenities, right? And pay attention to the layout. Every building has multiple layouts and they vary in desirability. So I go back to Fairfax. I remember when my friend had purchased in that building, and I'd go and I'd show other units. I'd tell her, you picked a really great layout. Because some of the layouts in that building were awful. And over the years now that she's owned, because she was one of the original owners from the builder, over the years, I've come to see that those units that I thought that weren't really a great layout are the ones that stay on the market longer. They're not desirable units in that building. So definitely something to pay attention to. 950 square feet could be a 1-bedroom plus den on a low floor, or a 2-bedroom in a totally different layout. So don't be, fooled by the square foot. You have to go in and see, is it laid out well? Does it feel open, spacious? Or is it a little stuffy design? One design could be more popular and sell out much more depending on the appeal of its configuration. So this particular unit I'm talking about in Fairfax, I remember you used to walk, and as soon as you open the door, the kitchen was right there on the right. So everybody hated that unit because who wants to walk right into the kitchen, right, of the unit? So be mindful of these things, and definitely go over with your client what their wants and needs are, and talking about maintenance fees, making sure they factor that in to their affordability. And you should always be flipping the condo information, the MLS information, to their mortgage agent at the end of the day, because sometimes, the maintenance fee might be low, but maybe it doesn't cover heat and hydro, right? And so if they're paying those things on top of their maintenance fee, it might put the affordability out of whack for them. And, maybe they're not going to get approved at the end of the day just because, the maintenance fee looks like it's low. Anybody have any questions so far? No, you guys are just listening to me intently online there. Okay, I'll go back to the status certificate now. Okay, things to remember when reviewing a status certificate. So again, I say you guys are not giving legal advice to your clients. At the end of the day, you're not the lawyer. Always has to go to review. Never tell your client to rely on your information. But there are some indicators that we should be aware of, that if our client gets stuck in a certain situation, we could give them our opinion, or we could, say to them that, if you want to waive it, sure, because I've looked at these few things, right? But you never say to them, yeah, no, for sure, nothing's wrong, go ahead, waive the status certificate clause. So anyways, have units closed in this building in the last 3 to 4 months? So if units are selling and closing, it means that other lawyers and lenders have approved the building. Okay. So CMHC most likely has not refused to lend to the property, which has occurred many times when concerns have been raised. This should give you comfort that all is good and in order in the building. So again, we go back to Prudential. I forget the numbers now off the top of my head, but there's one on this side of the street, say it's 21 Prudential, and it's funding just fine. But I remember a few years ago, right across the street, number 19 wasn't. They had a management problem in there, and they think they had a special assessment in, and or some litigation or something, and the bank was giving trouble funding that building. So don't assume just because you're standing in the same sort of group of buildings that everything's hunky-dory. You want to go in and you want to check the last few months of sales and make sure that the deals haven't fallen through, and that things have closed, and they're selling in that building. Okay. That's sort of a good indication that it's okay. Not 100% because anything can happen like yesterday and change for today, right? But if you look back, it should be a decent indicator of that. So what is the condominium corporation number? So we have like this TSCC 807 and like, whatever, TCC 1108, whatever. So what do these mean? So condos are registered in numerical order, with the first buildings being about 50 years ago. So the first I think it's more like 60 years ago now, because I've been teaching this material for a little while. So 60 years ago. So you're going to think that the condos really didn't exist before that. So how many buildings can we think of in Scarborough that were rental apartment buildings that have been converted over into condos? Right? Like 3380, 30, Eglinton, Lawrence 4024, Lawrence 4022, Lawrence, exactly. A lot of those buildings were just rentals back in the day. And then out came this concept of condos where you can have ownership even though you're in a building. That sort of surfaced about 60 years ago, right? And yeah, a lot of hotels have become, a lot of old apartment buildings have become condominiums, right? And that just gave people a more affordable way to have a little bit of ownership. But it also saw that the buildings were better taken care of. I mean, we all say not killing all renters out there. Don't kill me online. But we all see better properties are more taken care of when it's an ownership, right? And they're more interested in like renovating the space, and they're more interested in keeping care of the common spaces. And now, instead of it being an apartment building where you have sort of like your regular, what's it called, superintendent, just sort of vacuuming the floors and taking care of maintenance, everybody's paying into it. So you have more funding to, put new carpeting and lighting in the hallways and keep things bright and clean, right? So that started about 60 years ago. This means that if you are number 2400, your building is approximately, I would go ahead now and say more like 12 years old. If it is 500, then you'd be more like 22 years old. If it's close to 200, then perhaps maybe 55 years old, right? So what is this telling us? Why is that important to us, how old the building is? We can also look up the age of the building, but this is like, if we're just looking at the status certificate and seeing. So this, sorry? More age and then more maintenance also going up. Right. That people have right now. Yeah, exactly. The older something is, it's just a no-brainer that it's going to require more maintenance and care. So maybe the roof is going to come due for fixing, or they have to redo all the balconies. We've seen a lot of those old apartments turn to condos in Scarborough where they've redone all the balconies. Huge cost, right? And who bears the cost of that? All the owners of the building, right? So it's a good indicator if there are major repairs going to be needed in the building, such as the roof, windows, balconies, etc. You can look at the age of the building and measure if the reserve fund has enough to support the upkeep needed in the near future. So this is kind of a catch-22. So yeah, we always look and we see if there's enough reserve fund. That's great. And you can pay for that. So if the roof needs to be fixed, one or two things are going to happen. There's enough in the reserve fund and they're going to pay for it, or you're going to get a special assessment. Now, special assessment kind of sucks because, you're paying more than your maintenance fee going forward, right? But then also, if they use the reserve fund, they have to replenish the reserve fund. So if you're the next purchaser after they've depleted that reserve fund, it's going to look like the reserve fund is low. So kind of a catch-22 there, but it just depends how you're taking it. Like the special assessment is more of a bigger hit that's going to happen to the owner there. So who is the property manager? We talked about that a little bit. Check if the property manager is a familiar name. If the name is familiar or popular brand, there may be comfort in knowing on the board is being advised correctly. So again, we go back to that Dell property management. You guys will notice it now. The more you see, the more you show, you should be able to answer these questions for your client. So when you're showing a building, who's the builder and who's the property manager, right? So you should be able to see the difference when you go in, knowing, oh, I'm going into a building that's being managed by Dell Property. You'll see the difference now when that I've said it to you guys. You'll go, wow, it is managed nice. It's an older building and it's still really well kept. Does the reserve fund match the reserve study? So the reserve fund should be updated every 3 years. Be suspicious if there is no current one. The amount in the reserve fund should be similar to the amount that was projected in the last reserve fund study. So they're projecting what they need in the reserve fund, but based on the age of the building, or they think they might need to repair that roof, in 5 years, and the two should match. If there is a shortfall, do the following calculation. If there's 100 units in the building, it means that most likely your expense will be 1% if the reserve fund is short $1 million. Okay? Your unit share would be $10,000. This same math can be applied to roughly to special assessments. Okay, so you see how the reserve fund and the special assessment kind of go hand in hand. That what they're saying is if they've done a reserve fund study and says we need 3 million in our reserve fund for 2024, and you're buying a condo for your client right now, and they only have 2 million, there's a shortfall of 1 million there that might fall on the owners. So you should be warning your clients that, you know, it's a possibility you could get that if anything's happened, like if that roof repair is needed a year earlier, or if they aren't able to bring that reserve fund up in time for that roof repair that's needed.
One question.
Yeah.
Reserve fund.
Yeah.
The building management can possible any other investment getting more interest or something, or is sitting in the bank just 2% or something that happen, or they are allowed to, because see some people has already more reserve fund. Why don't they do the investment? Then the maintenance, the building people, they say example sometimes they want to restore the balcony, the new balcony. And some rents pay 5,000, 10,000 because of that. Then they put it investment that money, a secure investment, then less money the maintenance the tenant pay, you know, that's why.
So you want them to use their reserve fund to invest? I don't know, that's kind of, I've never heard of that done before. No. I would suspect that the condo corporation would have to create like a holding company. Yeah. And like the condo board would have to vote on that the holding company is allowed to invest in something. The sole purpose of the condo corporation is to take care of the condo, right?
I'll make their opinion for the
yeah opponent. It would really have to be voted, and I'm not sure how many people would be good with that, because that is supposed to be there as a fail-safe for the condo corporation should anything happen, right? But like I say, they wouldn't be able to just invest. I think they would have to have some sort of holding company to invest in something. I don't know, it would be kind of a nightmare there, but in order for any of that to happen, if someone did come up with a great idea like that and said, hey, we want to do this, there's meetings that happen, you know what I mean? And condo board meetings, and all of the people who own units in the condo are welcome to go to those meetings. So you have a say. It's just like voting for who you want to be prime minister. You have a say. So if you don't go out there and you vote, right, maybe something like that could happen. You'd go, hey, I don't like that, but you didn't attend the meeting or vote for it. So you sit down with the board members and all the unit owners, and you can sit and have your opinion and talk about these things and vote about these things. Yeah. You know, that's why every single building you go to has a lockbox in a different location. You ever wondered why someone has it there outside in the pole, someone has it in the stairwell, someone has it concierge, some has it side behind security, some has it in the parking? That's because that's where the condo board voted the best place for it to be.
Property before mine.
Yeah.
And they decreased their maintenance fee. I never hear any.
Yeah, you can.
$56 they decrease.
So that happened at Fairfax.
They say, please turn off the light, push the wisely, water and everything.
Yeah.
And the garbage, the recycle, everything separate.
Yeah.
And they don't charge city.
Then you don't get charged. Yeah.
Decrease $56 each unit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm telling you that happened over at Fairfax because they had really bad property manager. And what happened was that every time you went down to where the lockers were, there was this leak happening for like ever. Like, I swear to God, it was for months and months. And I was thinking, how is this leak just happening and happening and happening? Every time you go down to the locker here, it's crazy. They let it go on forever. And then there was a bunch of other things, like things started to get a little dirty. It wasn't very well taken care of, you know. And then all of a sudden they voted them out and they got a new property manager, and it was night and day. The building is beautiful. The maintenance fees went down a little. They fixed that leak that was happening forever. Yeah, so it's definitely how the building is managed and who's voting what and who's complaining. If nobody's complaining about anything and nobody's coming and voting for anything, and you guys just see that the carpet's always dirty and nobody's voting for it to get cleaned or complaining about it, then yeah, so everybody sort of a collective effort in that. Okay, is Airbnb permitted? The status certificate will tell you how many units are leased versus leased to tenants versus owned units. Okay, so the status certificate will say this building is, 80% owner occupied, 20% rented, right? So that's important to you too, because again, not a hit on tenants out there in online world, but you generally find that the properties that are owned and occupied by owners are taken better care of than rentals, right? So if you find that a building is 70% rented and your owner really cares about that, you're going to find that they might have more complaints about the cleanliness of the building, or who's separating their garbage, or, smells coming from other units, different things like that, right? Many buildings will have a minimum lease period of 6 months to a year. So that means if your client is buying for Airbnb purposes or VRBO purposes, they might not be able to do that. So if they're buying it as an investment, you want to look at the status certificate and see what the minimum lease term is. So they say if it's minimum 6 months to a year, then obviously that's not going to be an Airbnb type of product, right? More and more condos are trying to prevent this due to security and insurance reasons. So why is this a problem for a building? Why? Who cares? I want to be an investor and put an Airbnb in here. Why can't I? But if you're an owner in that building and you're living in that building and you have the constant, flow of Airbnb coming and staying 1-2 nights on weekends, people are generally renting them for vacation purposes or for party purposes. So you find it's a lot more ruckus, more disturbances in the building, more likely that there's going to be some kind of disruption to the building, right? People coming and going, coming and going. So it's definitely an insurance risk in that phase. Pets and parking. So make sure you would understand in advance whether pets or parking are permitted. Pets may be allowed, but there may be a weight restriction or maximum number of animals allowed. So we talked about the weight restriction, but just because there's a maximum of 20-pound dogs doesn't mean you can have 7. They might say no more than 2, right, per unit. Make sure you physically see the parking spot and locker before signing any offer. This way there's no confusion with what you expect on closing. So I have a friend downtown who lives in the merchandise building. And he always laughs because he can't fit my truck in his parking spot. So imagine I bought this unit. I cannot fit, my truck is 6'2" or something like that. And the garage is 6'2". So you would assume that my car would fit. But his parking spot is the one way at the end. And there just happens to be some, they cover those pipes in the stucco or whatever to make it look better. There's a pipe right in this parking spot and my truck will not go under that pipe. It hits the pipe. So imagine I had bought that unit. Imagine your client bought that unit. Wouldn't they be really mad at you for not exploring that? They'd say, hey, I'm going to sell my car now because my car doesn't fit in my parking spot. So make sure you go physically see the amenities, physically see. They might say, oh, I'm so happy this has a gym, and walk in and it only has like 1 treadmill and skipping rope. You know what I mean? And again, something that they were really anticipating that would save them the cost of having that gym membership. And now they still need it because the gym at the building sucks, right? It's possible that the number on the floor may not be the same as legal unit number. So this is, again, something I wanted to point out. I see this pitfall happen a lot when people are creating their offers. So when you go, let me just go back into that Geo warehouse here again. Let me just grab you guys back there. Share screen. Okay, so we're going to come back into here. We'll go back into that 38 lease center. So this is unit 811, right? So when you are preparing your offer, it asks for the legal description. So what a lot of people would do is say level 8, unit 11, right? But that's not always the case. So you have to go to your Geo warehouse. So many people make this mistake in their offer. It's crazy because I know you guys aren't checking your Geo warehouse. So let's just go see if this one matches. I don't remember if it does or not. If it doesn't, well, then we'll go try to find another example. Here you go. Perfect example. So we see this is 811 38 lease center. Okay. But in the legal description, it says unit 10, level 7. You kind of go, huh? That doesn't make sense. When you're filling out your offer paperwork, your inclination is to put level 8, unit 11, but that's not what the legal description of this is. So you have to go into the paperwork and check the paperwork to make sure that it matches what the legal description is properly, versus what you think it is according to what do they call this? The city address, right? It's not the same as the city address of the property.
I rented a 6th floor 38 lease center 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
The guy happy.
Well, that's good. It's a nice building. They're good buildings. I like the lease center buildings. Yeah, the lease center buildings are good. You know what I mean? I don't have a problem with them. I think that they're well kept, and I think that they stay nice and clean. And we just sold one 2 years ago from 11 lease center. And my client still says he misses that unit. He only sold it because he was moving in with his girlfriend and he wanted a bigger place. But
two buildings are connected, so we put everything. Can you
yeah, everybody can use it. And you know what I like about the visitor parking there? You drive in and you don't have to buzz. So your people visiting you don't always have to buzz, because you don't have to use your key card to get in until you get to the owner occupied spots, right? So nice buildings. Things to remember too, though, is there visitor parking for your clients? You know what I mean? Is it underground or surface parking? Our client looking right now, she really wants underground. She doesn't want to shovel the snow off her car, right? So we can only look at underground places with security right now. So definitely things to look at for that. Does anybody have any questions online there? We talked a lot about different types of condos. Let's just go and see here real quick on this search if any of those co-op condos came up. I'm trying to think what areas I've seen them. I think I've seen them in E4 before. Condo, common elements. Here you go. Common element condo right there. Oh yeah, Meadow Glen. No, this guy's listed it wrong. That's not a common element. So this is an example of, sorry, I hate to call this agent out. Let's put his name down. People aren't listing it properly because I know that's not a common elements condo. These are the new condos at Markham and Ellesmere. They're not common elements. They're proper just condo, regular condominiums. So let's see if we can find one. It would be common element. No, again, that's not right. That's a lease center condo. That agent is wrong as well. Mornell. Is Mornell? Let me just double check this. I don't even think this is a common element. But anyways, you guys look and see if you can find it and see what the difference is.
More maintenance kind of.
This one has time because these are quite old.
Yeah.
But they're huge. They're like a house.
Yeah.
They're houses that are smaller than the insides of these.
Yeah.
Yeah. And upstairs, downstairs, everything to them. They're crazy. But this is actually not too bad for this one, 765. Maintenance fee must be, well, it is a 3-bedroom. It's not terrible, but yeah, not as bad as the ones at 4022. Those maintenance fees are like $1,100 a month. They're kind of crazy. I was going to mention too quickly, don't be confused when you're doing your offers for freeholds with parcels of tied land. Okay. It should not be done on condo paperwork, right? There's a specific form for freehold with parcel of tied land. So what's a parcel of tied land? I know it's a little confusing to everybody. So for instance, say you have a row. Does anybody have been to the condos? They're called spring something at Vic Park and Spring
Meadows.
No, spring something at Vic Park in St. Clair. No? Okay. Anyways, if you just look it up there, it's spring something Vic Park in St. Clair. So that would be a parcel of tied land because you kind of come on just north of St. Clair off of Vic Park, and you pull in and there's a lane, and along those lanes it's all of the townhouses there. And there's little parking and there's some garden beds and stuff. So all of those are freehold. So you own the property, there's no maintenance fees. You could do whatever you want. You could change your doors, your windows. You don't have to ask anybody, but they share like the driveway and the gardens and the parking. So they share the maintenance of just resurfacing the parking, a little bit of garden maintenance, maybe some lawn mowing. I don't know what else they pay for, right? That would be a parcel of tied land. So don't put that on condo paperwork, right? Because you're not buying a condo. You're buying a freehold. There's a specific form. If you guys are ever confused, just contact me. But there's a freehold with a maintenance fee. There's still a maintenance fee, but it has nothing to do with your actual property. It only has to do with yeah, it only has to do with the tied land amongst those units. Yeah. They all share that land, so they're sharing the maintenance for that land.
But not all.
Yeah, all the units that are on that are sharing that. Yeah. There's another one at what's it called? ASAMEWS, ASAMEWS. If you guys look up that one, just for practice, look up the sales that have happened there. You'll find them in freehold. I sold a unit there. Again, that's another parcel of tied land kind of situation. But like I say, if you guys are ever confused and you're creating your offers and you're not sure what you're looking at, just flip me the address and I can always look it up and help you or overlook your offer or whatever you've prepared and make sure that you guys are getting all the information on it correct. Does anybody have any questions online? You guys are also good and quiet listening. Exactly. All right, so I was gonna go over some offer paperwork, but there's only a few minutes left, so maybe we'll do offer paperwork another time and go over how we're filling that out properly. The main points were status certificate today and seeing if a condo's got, good worth for your client to buy, what you should look out for, and the different types of condos. So those are the important things to look out when you're shopping with your clients.
I know you talk about the status certificate.
Yeah.
I know it's right and wrong, but the thing is, I don't. The seller want to buy the 200 if they need it. So the seller, buyer. I mean, they want to.
Because the thing is that say you have multiple. So the question here was, why doesn't the buyer buy the status certificate if they're the ones that need it?
They don't.
But the thing is as a seller, I might have 3 people who need to review that status certificate. So it doesn't make sense for 3 people to keep on buying it multiple times, the same information. That's why this sort of falls on the onus of the seller. Yeah. Yeah. Especially in multiple offer situations, you might give that status certificate out to 10 or 15 people, right? So they're
one you can copy, but it's
well,
they can order because the owner have to order.
Yeah.
And then okay, the buyer buying 250 or 3.
Yeah.
Then you say, okay, one copy for your email. Somebody he doesn't want, that's his problem. So he willing to see that.
But not everybody's willing to share. Like just because one buyer buys it, I might say, no, I bought it. It's my property. You go buy it for yourself. You know what I mean? Not everybody's nice like that, right?
But
so
not get name or something. Even we get the said here your name and you are the owner, your name.
Yeah.
So you can take an email in case if you are interested when he want to buy, you can just email him, and then you can't that's your problem. You charge or not, that's
yeah. Also, biggest mistake I see is that people don't have the status certificate ready when people are ready to put an offer in. If you know that your client there's a sale coming up for the condo, get them to order that status certificate. It can take up to 10 days. So I've seen people set a bid date and on their bid date, they don't have the status certificate. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like you could get a firm offer right now. Instead, you're making everybody put in conditional offers. They can back out anytime. Like you're ruining your client's sale. So be proactive and get that status certificate as soon as you know that they're going to be putting it up. They might say to you, I want to paint a little, maybe I'll clean, we'll put it up for next Monday. You say, okay, but no matter what, you order the status today. You want it in hand.
You can get 24 hours, but why you have to pay more?
Yeah.
You can get 24 hours.
Yeah.
You pay more.
Okay. Okay. That's good.
Normally
10 business days. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
So how much is the difference for
350 24 hours and 250 10 days. Okay.
Yeah.
I know, but I am asking. Yes. Some people get $100 more, some people $100 nothing.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the situation now in Canada.
Yeah, I know. Trust me.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, you have a lovely week. Let me know if you have any questions or you need any help. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
No problem.